Hello and welcome to Experian's weekly Data Talk, a show where we talk to data science leaders from around the world. I'm super excited to be chatting with Randy Lao. He teaches machine learning at the Data Application Lab and Data Science Boot Camps at USC School of Engineering. He is prolific on LinkedIn. He is always helping the LinkedIn community learn more about data science, and it's an honor to have Randy in today's chat today. Randy, how's it going?
It's going great. And no, it's my honor to be here. So really appreciate the time for you to have me participate in this. So thank you so much.
Oh man, it's great having you. So for those that aren't following Randy, I'm gonna have a link on our Experian blog so you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Follow him there because he is sharing just so much knowledge about the things that you need to know if you want to work in data science. And what I love about Randy too is that he's so encouraging. Like he supports the community. He's always giving back. And so for those who are not following him on social channels, make sure you're following Randy. And I'll give you the short URL right now. The Experian blog is just ex.pn/datatalk48. And that will bring you over to the Experian blog where we have links to Randy's social profiles. I want to highly recommend you follow him there. So today we're talking with Randy about one of the biggest questions we get in our Facebook group, which is, how do I become a data scientist? And Randy, when we were emailing back and forth, he said, let's talk about the steps it takes to become a successful data scientist. So that's today's topic. But to kick this off, Randy, can you share with our community about your journey that led you into data science?
Yeah, so my journey has been pretty sudden. Everything that's been happening with LinkedIn, with learning data science, machine learning, all happened last year. And this is all due to my Springboard experience in a data science bootcamp. So big thanks to Springboard. It's a really great bootcamp. And what I've learned from that is the whole process of data science in general, not just the learning aspect, but more on like the self-learning, and that learning is never ending because there's so much things to learn. And what I also learned too is the value of networking. So connecting with people, building that relationship, and just understanding who they are and what problems they're going through allows you to be more capable with working with different problems. And I also got a chance to work with USC. So in regards to the e-learning platform, I've been exposed to 3 different boot camps, one at USC with Trilogy Education, one with Springboard, and then one for Data Application Lab. So in regards to that, I do have a breadth of knowledge in regards to what people should be studying for, and especially some advice for job searches.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me about your move into machine learning. You teach machine learning at these boot camps, and what drove you to focus specifically on ML?
I actually have both focused on data science and machine learning, but what I really like about machine learning in general, and what I emphasize everyone else to focus on more, is that it's going to be the future, machine learning, AI, deep learning. And there was a quote from Mark Cuban saying, at the moment, if you don't know what machine learning is, in 3 years, you're going to be a dinosaur. So if that doesn't motivate you, but yeah, I heard that. But my main motive was that it's pretty cool. When I break down data science, I think of someone having 2 skills. So using machine learning as a way of predicting things, like you're a wizard. So what I tend to write a lot on LinkedIn, I try to simplify these very vague terminologies. A simple breakdown of what machine learning is, if you can think of it, it's machine learning is just data plus an algorithm. At the most simplest case, that's about it. And you're just using these different algorithms to come up with different predictions. And each prediction can be accurate and be evaluated for different use cases, such as supervised learning, unsupervised learning. So in regards to that, I find that having the ability to predict things or become more prepared for the future is something really interesting.
No doubt. So tell me about some favorite data science projects.
Yeah. So the two that I would like to talk more about was one with NLP, so natural language processing. That made me really appreciate and understand that text data is super dirty and it takes a lot of time to pre-process, to clean up your data. And by a long time, I mean a long time. And especially with the data I was working with, it was from a Kaggle competition provided by Mercury. So it had about, I don't know, a few million rows. So
oh my gosh.
That made me also appreciate the fact that learning Spark and Hadoop and these like big distributed systems allows you to make your work and life a lot easier. So that project, I learned a lot about NLP. Long story short, data is dirty and data cleaning is important. So that was something I learned. And another project that I really liked was actually took some time and did some in-depth analysis on employee turnover. So IBM provided a data set that allows you to actually explore employee data. And what that made me realize is, hiring employees, keeping an employee, having that balance of like a working good working environment is very important. So it made me appreciate the things that I see throughout work. If I do see people leaving a company, it just made me value like what goes on in the data set or like what goes on in their life. And that's just something that needs to be evaluated on. So those are just two of the projects that I wanted to share.
That's awesome. And I loved how you talked about the dirty data and the data wrangling you've had to do with these with these big data sets. And what I also think is great, Randy, is that your curiosity and you're so driven that you're joining these Kaggle competitions, which I think is really important for anybody who wants to be working in data science, because it helps you to level up, to learn new things, and also work with a group of people who can help you along the way. So I think that's awesome that you're doing that.
Thanks.
Can you tell us about the boot camps that you're teaching?
Yeah. So at the moment, I'm teaching two boot camps, one with USC, and that's more of a data visualization, data analytics boot camp, and then one with data application lab, and that's more in the machine learning side. So my day-to-day or day-to-day job environment is we have a lot of students. So my goal is to just track them, monitor their results, and just teach them and support them throughout their whole process. So I think a most common thing that a lot of students have whenever they're tackling into the field is the concept of programming. I get a lot of questions about that. And what I tell a lot of people too is, because a lot of people make the mistake of when they're learning these programming languages like R or Python and they're interested in data science, some people make the mistake of learning that language just for data science. So they're just learning the packages. Like, tell me what packages do I need? Pandas, matplotlib, scikit-learn. But I think they're missing another important aspect of it, the actual programming language itself. So some people have a lot of problem like debugging, understanding why their code's not working. And this is all goes back down to the fundamentals of programming. So that's what I have to emphasize on, especially the viewers. If you're ever interested in data science, spend some time learning programming itself as a language, understand like the different types of data structures, some algorithms, and like the basics, conditionals, for loops, and if and else statements, because learning the fundamentals is going to take you a long way, and it's like a building block to your success.
I think that's solid advice. What, for those who are kind of just getting started, is there certain programs or coding languages you would recommend they check out or start to play with?
Yeah. Right now, data science it's still a growing field. I'm not too sure what's going to be the future. But at the moment, like right now, if you're interested in getting like a good, valuable asset to any company, the two most common programming languages are Python and R. And also some familiarity with SAS, possibly, depending on what company you're working for. But I'd recommend R if you're into more of like a statistical analysis type of person, because it was actually made by statisticians. And I would recommend Python as just a general programming language and if you're more emphasized on production and like machine learning deployment, because Python is very versatile. You can use it just for programming. You can use it for efficiency, and the community there is huge. So a lot of libraries are popping up every year, and there's just a big, good support for you to like get help.
How long would it take like the average person to pick up a language like Python or R?
That really depends on the person.
Yeah.
So depending on their background, but if I were to say if someone's really new to programming, like they don't know nada, nothing. Yeah, I would say take a course on maybe Data Camp, or maybe go to Code Academy. And it might take you, if you spend maybe 3 hours a week or 3 hours a day and for a week, it should give you a good sense and a good foundation on like what you're going to be dealing with. So I would recommend Code Academy. I would recommend Data Camp. Those are my two main twos for programming in general. So it's best to learn these stuff, but you actually learn the most when you're actually programming. And that's what Code Academy provides. It's an actual platform where to proceed on to the next level, you have to code out your homework.
Now I took back when I was in college a long time ago, I took a Visual Basic C++ class, and our tests were like handwritten.
Okay.
And it freaked me out because I didn't have, I couldn't test anything.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a big difference between actual writing out the code and writing out the code.
Yeah.
Yeah. Different feeling.
Yeah. It was brutal. I barely passed. So what would you say, like, for people like that, me who like struggled or are currently struggling learning a language, and they maybe feel like giving up, but they really, they have a heart for getting into data science, but it's just like this first big step of like learning the language. Yeah. What advice would you give them?
Okay, I think this advice can be applicable to anything you're learning. So with programming or with learning any new concept, the initial stage is always going to be the hardest. And this is where a lot of people tend to quit because it can get a little overwhelming. And what I would like to say, my biggest advice is to always keep the big picture in mind. So some problem that I see when I'm mentoring some of my students is they freak out, they panic on some of the small nitty-gritty syntax of a programming language that causes them to not have their code running properly. But I always tell them, okay, this is just a normal thing that happens in the coding life. Your main focus should be on the problem you're trying to solve. Focus on that more rather than just the syntax, because you can Google the answers, Stack Overflow. That's literally what all my friends who are software engineers do. They say that 80% of their time they're Stack Overflowing or they're Googling. They're trying to Google the answer, which I totally agree.
Yeah.
So especially as a newbie, you're going to be overwhelmed with all these syntax errors. And my best advice is to calm down, just Google it, and it's just a normal process.
Okay.
And the more practice you get, the more errors you're going to go into, and then the more realization on how you're going to solve it.
I love that. I think that's great. That's great advice. So tell me about, data science is like a huge field. There's headlines about, data science being the sexiest, position out there. But can you kind of describe kind of the different roles that fall within data science? So for people to get like a sense of like what people are doing, the different aspects of the jobs.
Okay. So whenever I teach these people about these concepts, I like to, again, break it down into analogies or something very easy to understand. So in this case, what I would describe data science, you're just solving a problem using data, to keep it simple. And there's a lot of process involved, whether that's data cleaning, whether that's getting your data, so data gathering, whether that's data pre-processing, whether that's data modeling. Anything you're doing with data is some aspect of data science. And it could be broken down into kind of like three main parts. So depending on your interest, you can branch out into more of like an analyst. That's one. You can branch out more of the data engineers, creating the actual pipelines on how the data is going to come in and out of your company. Or you could be more focused on the machine learning engineer aspect, creating the models, putting things into production. So three main focus, but all have some commonality in regards to skill set that I would say can be broken down into. So you should have some understanding on like the math and stats, understanding distributions, like understanding when to use the p-values, understanding correlations, a good foundation on databases, so SQL, NoSQL concepts, good understanding on some basic math, linear algebra, calculus, and a good foundation on programming, whether that's R, Python, or SAS. And again, this is something that I don't think schools teach, and this is what you learn throughout life, especially in data science or any job. It's about people skills, communication, having empathy, understanding what problems they're having, being in their shoe, so you can have a better understanding on how to fix their problems.
So I love that you're touching on the human element, because so often we get caught up with the math, the stats, the computer science portions. What are some, like, would you say are key personality traits or things that you think make a successful data scientist?
Yeah. So data science, again, it's big field, very broad, but the key to success in this field, since it's fairly new and it's changing a lot, you got to have that passion of learning, because you're going to be learning a lot throughout the day. You're going to be it's never ending learning. And another thing too is having a drive. You got to have that motivation. You got to have that drive on finding your purpose in life, finding the value you want to bring to the community. So that whether that's maybe on the education platform, helping people out, whether that's on like marketing, whether that's building a product for your community. That's my two key takeaways on like waking up every day, waking up every morning, and having a reason to like go out through your day.
And no doubt, I mean, the things I see you doing on LinkedIn, you're constantly learning, you're constantly sharing what you're learning. And I love your approach and how you break it down to the simplest analogies to help explain things. So I think that's extremely helpful, especially for anybody like myself who's like just beginning, to learn more about data science.
Yeah.
And I also love that you touch on the passion and the drive, because like you said, working on a data project for the very first time or just getting started can seem overwhelming. Because I definitely know what that feels like. When I took that one class, I only took that one class, and I was like, I'm out of here. But so tell me about your like the level, like for someone who's interested in taking a class or going to a boot camp. Somebody who has like no background at all, they haven't taken a college math class in a long time. Where should they start?
Yeah, so this is a question I asked myself a few months back, and my advice is for data science, you should have so nothing too much, depending on your role. Again, like if you're a heavy machine learning enthusiast, you might have need a stronger grasp on these concepts. But for the general majority of like data science as a whole, some understanding on linear algebra, and I would say read up till understanding like eigenvalues, eigenvectors. That should be plenty, which is maybe like 10 chapters in. And then I would say focus on some calculus concepts up to maybe integrals, because most of the calculus used in machine learning is all about optimization problems and doing derivations. And I will also say have a heavy emphasis on stats and probability, because if you think about it, the data you're working with is just a sample of the outer population of what you're trying to gather data out of. So your goal as a data scientist is to get a sample that best represents the population you're trying to analyze. So having some basic foundations on stats, probability, linear algebra, calculus will like set you far. And I would say Khan Academy would be my number one. It's my favorite on YouTube. That's about it for the heavy math.
Okay.
Khan Academy, it's organized and it's free.
Can't go wrong with that.
No,
I love that. So okay, so that would be your recommendation for kind of the math stats side. What about the kind of the programming side?
Yeah. So the programming side, again, I would highly emphasize either Data Camp or Code Academy. And back to what I said before, coding is literally the backbone of what you're going to be doing as a data scientist, because all of the things that you're going to be handling with, all the data is going to be in your computer. And the way to actually manipulate it and have a hands-on approach with working with data is actual programming. So you gotta have to learn the basics. And another advice too, I advise is a lot of people say should learn R or Python. For a newbie, I'd say Python. Just pick one. Don't switch around. Don't switch around. Pick one. Learn it as a programming language itself. That's one. And two, now you're ready. Now you can start dabbling with the packages available. So I'll recommend learning Pandas for data manipulation, NumPy for any manipulation of your data for like transformations, which you might need for machine learning. And then if you're into machine learning, you can move into scikit-learn and deep learning, either like Keras or TensorFlow or Keras.
And I got to share with you. So I just read this article. Actually saw it on LinkedIn. It was an article from AARP. It features this 83-year-old woman in Japan who took up coding at 83. She was already retired, and she's like, she just wants to keep learning, right?
Yeah, I love her already.
Yeah, 83 years old. She ends up learning to code and created a mobile app for senior, like a gaming app for seniors.
No way. Okay.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, if you can send me that link, I would love to read it.
Okay, yeah, I'll find it and send it to you. It was, I was like, that was so like encouraging and motivational to me.
Yeah,
I was like, here she is. She could be spending the rest of her time kind of relaxing, but she's like, I want to keep learning. And
hey,
83 was like, I'm gonna learn how to code.
If that doesn't motivate you guys to code, then I don't know.
Put me to shame.
Yeah, exactly, man. I want to meet her.
That's so cool. So another big question that we get a lot in our Facebook community are people wondering, okay, after I go through the boot camps, I get certified as a data scientist. How do I get my first job? How do I get my foot in the door?
Yeah. So this is what I really emphasize back to either blogging, LinkedIn, or just having a social presence. So after you've done all of this, after you've done the boot camps, after you've learned the foundations, this is where you have to start creating things, creating like artifacts, things that have value, not value, but lasting value. Because when you create things and you post it, whether it's a blog, a post, a GitHub repo, that's lasting value that people can see that you've done. And that's what they need for like evidence. Because if you can have all the best skills in the world, it's all in your head. But if you don't take the time to share it with the public, share it with the community, provide the value back, that's something that's going to hinder you. And like you're going to lose a lot of missing opportunities that people are in need of. And this is another thing too. It's not very selfish. You're actually providing use to the community as well. You're providing your ideas. You're providing your analysis. You're providing your creativity that other people might need to get inspired by. So this is where I like to emphasize LinkedIn as a great platform to not only share your work, but you're also learning from others as well with the same common interest. So in my case, machine learning and data science. So that's something I would say about that.
And I think what's good about that, Randy, is that no matter if you're just starting out, I mean, that would be a prime time. I mean, you may not have much to say, but you have a lot of questions and you
Yeah.
just want to start to build relationships. And so even if you're just starting out, like you can start blogging about your route to becoming a data scientist. And that could be a huge encouragement to others who follow your blog. And then for you, it's like your own personal diary of you kind of like tracking, right?
Yeah. And I would also like to add on that as well. So believe it or not, you have to ask a lot of questions. You'll be surprised how many people are out there are willing to help you out. And also too, especially when you're new, my advice is find a mentor, whether that's from a book, whether that's from this podcast, whether that's from someone's LinkedIn profile. You have to find someone who's been there and done that, and then try to copy them. Because in life, if you don't have a mentor, you'll be up and down, failing, succeeding, failing, succeeding. What I'd like to see a mentor is gives you like a little fast track. So instead of the ups and downs, it's kind of like a linear path. It saves you time. They're going to be there to help you out and tell you what to do and what not to do. So again, I'm learning from you right now as a mentor. I'm learning from everybody on the LinkedIn community. I'm learning from people on YouTube. Think of every connection and every person you're meeting as a learning opportunity.
If you were like, I'm curious about like, if you're reaching out to somebody to be like a mentor, someone you would talk to maybe once a month, how would you reach out to that person? And because I feel like sometimes, I mean, that person is going to be giving up their time, right, to mentor you. And you want to find also someone who's going to be the right fit. What advice do you have for finding a mentor?
Got it. My biggest advice, and a mistake that I see that's pretty common, is because I receive a lot of messages on LinkedIn, and I've talked to a lot of other data scientists who've been receiving messages as well. And a common mistake, or I wouldn't say a mistake, but something that's won't give you a good success rate in regards to a response back is just asking them straight up about, hey, I need a job, or hey, can you help me out, without providing some initial value back to them. So my advice would be, you have to do your work first. You have to find out what you need and your want, and you have to provide some sense of like, I've tried. So start contributing back, and you got to be very consistent. Just because someone hasn't responded back, it might be a busy day. Keep that in mind. Have that reflection of that person, and just be consistent. You have to provide value first. And also to look them up as a person. Don't just ask that person for your sake. It's never, the transaction of a relationship is never win, lose, lose, win. It's always going to be a win-win. What can you give them, and what can they give you? So that's what I would say.
That's good. I think that's awesome advice. And I think the trouble sometimes is somebody who's new, they don't know what they can give the mentor.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So how would you, like, if you're just starting out and you're looking for a mentor, and obviously you're always giving back, that's just your nature. How would you kind of approach the mentor? Like, because you're trying to think, like, how do I add value? How do I give back to this person?
So this is where I started when I initially started, all back to meetups and LinkedIn. So I was completely new, but what I saw worked best is because you're new and you're not new to the data community, no one knows who you are. You have to start being consistent in regards to posting your interest and questions and curiosity about the field, whether that's data science or machine learning. That, at the very least, shows that you're trying and that you're motivated to learn. So having that mindset, people are going to notice that. And when you start tagging people on LinkedIn with quality questions, you're going to get answers easily. So it all goes back to you on how you tailor your response and how you tailor your questions. If it's of quality, of course, we're going to be answering it. But if it's very generic and doesn't seem like you spend a lot of time writing it, then, of course, the feedback won't be as great.
Do you have any recommendations for those who are just getting involved in data science. Could you mention, posting questions? I'm curious about any favorite online communities you'd recommend people check out.
Yeah, definitely. So I've done a lot of research about like the different data sites to go out there, and my few favorites that I look up mostly at least once a week would be Towards Data Science on Medium. Very good articles made by a lot of good professionals, and you get a lot of creativity and inspiration from these posts. Another one would be either it's called Analytics Vidya, which is an Indian online community for data science. Very popular, a lot of good resources there. I would say another one of my favorites would be Data Camp, good for learning data science as a whole. Another one would be Code Academy, again, for learning programming. And for more of the math side, I would say Khan Academy. So those would be my 5 recommendations.
Those are great. I love that you included some blogs, because some people don't think of blogs as being a social network, but get involved in the comments.
Also, like to add too. Another thing that I think might make the most impact is Kaggle, because this is what I've learned kind of not too late, but something that I just made a post about. Especially when you're new to the field, you have to understand what people are doing. And what Kaggle provides, it's an online data science platform where people are allowed to upload their notebooks, which is literally the codes that they're writing themselves. So it's code from either the experts, the machine learning experts, the expert in analysis. Use that time to actually read through the codes and understand what they're doing, so you can get a sense on how they're thinking. So that's another thing too. It's good to know these tools, but there's a difference in understanding when to use it and why to use it, which makes you become a data scientist, the way of thinking and tackling different problems.
Well, Randy, I am so bummed because this half hour is up, and you have been a phenomenal guest, providing so many wonderful insights. And again, props to you for all the work that you're doing to encourage, motivate our data science community. I'm walking away from this data talk just excited and powered up from talking to you. So before we go, can you let everyone know how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah. Well, first, before I say that, I just want to thank Mike and everybody who's watching. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I'm glad to share some of my knowledge with you guys. And back to reaching out, you can connect with me through LinkedIn. I'm very active on that. My account is, I think, Randy Lao Sat. So message me anytime, leave a note, and also connect with Mike. Leave a note to him because it's all thanks to him for making this happen.
Oh, thanks, Randy. Actually, I'm going to put up on the screen here really quickly for those who are watching live.
All right.
Okay, so there's our URL. So this is going to point to the Experian blog, where I'll have links over to Randy's work. And Randy, after this broadcast, can you send me any other links you want me to post, like Kaggle or GitHub? And I'll make sure to add it there. That way they can follow you across these different networks. But again, the URL for those listening to the podcast is just ex.pn/datatalk48. And that's where you can get connected with Randy. And again, follow him. And like Randy is saying, like engage in the conversation. If Randy posts a question or he posts something, like the best way to get to know Randy is just start to comment back and add value to his network by doing that. So Randy, I want to thank you again for your time. We'd love to have you back at any time you want to come back. This has been a great discussion. For those watching for the first time, we do data talks every single week. The day and time varies based on when our guest is available, but we cover all things machine learning, artificial intelligence, and in fact, we had one earlier dealing with how scientists at MIT are using machine learning to find planets, which was a fascinating discussion. And again, because machine learning is where things are headed, and so take Randy's advice. Get in now if you're interested. Randy, thank you so much for being our guest, and we'll chat soon.
Definitely. All right. See you later, everybody.
Bye-bye.